Phil Robertson with WFTV in Orlando. Going back to the
and I'll introduce once again the shuttle program manager, Ron Dittemore. He'll have some comments and then we'll throw it open for questions. We're fairly limited on time today, so we'll try to get through as many questions as we possibly can before we have to close. Turn it over to Ron.
Our investigation in the past 5 days has certainly been fast and furious, and today it enters a new phase. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board, chaired by Admiral Harold Gehman, has arrived here at the Johnson Space Center, and we have spent the day briefing him and his board. The leadership of the investigation, the oversight of gathering information and other responsibilities is being transitioned to this board. I spoke with Admiral Gehman this morning, and he is strongly committed to the public's ability to continue to follow the investigation's progress. Regular briefings to you will continue as we have been doing these past several days. From a personal standpoint, I am very pleased to have Admiral Gehman here with his team, and we offer our full support. Anything that Admiral Gehman needs, we will provide to him. And we pledge to him that we will continue to support him as we have done in the past. As we have prepared investigation plans and procedures, we will transition our thoughts and our plans over to the board, and we will follow his leadership. Efforts to recover debris continue. Unfortunately, the bad weather has made the job more difficult, and despite these tough conditions, people in the field are working diligently, sacrificing much of their time to continue to do their best to retrieve the debris that will be important in our investigation. And again, I want to extend my personal thanks to each and every one of those in the field, both those that are supporting us in the government, local and state authorities, and certainly the public citizens who are also helping us immensely. So far, more than 1,000 items have been gathered at various locations, and we are in the process of moving these different items into the central location at Barksdale Air Force Base. New reports are coming in all the time. As far as the investigation goes, let me emphasize again and even though we scratch our heads from time to time and wonder if we're going down a right path, it's important to understand that the first step in any investigation is to develop a fault tree. And in the fault tree, you examine and identify every possible cause, no matter how remote or no matter what you think about the possibility of that cause. And once you develop that tree, then you establish a process where you systematically close out each branch of the tree. So in the end, you have uncovered or overturned. You have looked at each branch, each possible block, each possible cause, and satisfied yourself that you have done a thorough and complete job, independent of what you might think of the probabilities or the possibilities. As I talked to you yesterday, I mentioned to you that We believe in some instances that it's hard for us to understand why a piece of foam that has fallen off the tank could have been the root cause. But that is not stopping us from continuing to investigate that particular event as being a potential root cause. We are planning testing of foam impact on tiles. We are performing analysis. That's just an example. Even though we scratch our heads and don't quite understand how this could be a contributor, it still exists in the fault tree, and we're going to pursue that branch of the fault tree until we have closed it as a possibility. And in many cases, in order to close it, you've got to perform some testing. And so even though I mentioned to you I thought it was not one of the primary items in our mind, we are pursuing it with great effort. No possibility is being ruled out. We're still looking for that elusive missing link. And we're hopeful that as we examine our fault trees across the program and perform our testing and look and examine the debris that we have gathered, that we will find the missing link. That may take some time to do. You can imagine if you look at the fault tree, it's going to have thousands of blocks to pursue, many different branches to follow and paths to discuss. So systematically, the large team that we have gathered will go through each one of those branches. And this activity, again, will be led by the Accident Investigation Board, and we will support that activity to the best of our abilities. Again, let me say that it is with some relief that I welcome Admiral Gaiman here. We need their expertise, we need their independent look at what we have been doing. And we will work closely with him and his board.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to be real short on time today, so please keep it to one question. Randy, let's run down, start with Bill in the front and grab the two behind him. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Johnson Space Center. For today's briefing, once again, is Shuttle Program Manager Ron Dittemore. Again, he's got a briefing for you today, and we are considering this a briefing, and although it is a press conference, we're going to have a limited time for question and answers with all the NASA centers, so bear with us, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. And with that, I will turn it over to Ron.
I was reflecting upon the week. It's been 6 days since the accident. Tremendously long week for every one of us. And as I was reflecting upon that, I wanted to review a few things that I've told you during the week. You know, in these types of incidents, the nature of trying to pull everything together leads to some confusion. It leads to misinformation and even some second guessing on all of our parts. And there's a certain amount of fluidity in the direction that we may take as we wade through these choppy waters of trying to gather all the relevant information. Recall that in the beginning I cautioned against jumping to conclusions. And I think over the past week you have witnessed an inside view of our ups and downs as we've attempted to steer a course throughout the week. Early in the week, we received bursts of data and information. But now there is not a lot of new information for me to report to you. We are now entering a tedious phase of review, re-review, detailed examination of all available data and information. And it's just going to be a painstaking process. Some of that early information is now being reviewed, and some adjustments are expected as we get a better understanding of the pedigree of the information and the data. The timeline has stabilized, but it is still undergoing a few tweaks. And because it's important that we get it right, I'm not able to provide that to you today. I am going to provide you some information that I think will help you understand the relationship between the loss of sensors and some temperature increases over the time frame, and I hope that that will help you get a better feeling of what we may be working on. I spent the morning visiting the workforce that builds the external tank in Michoud, Louisiana. There is just a tremendous amount of activity going on at that location. There are fault trees being developed, and there's an extensive testing plan also being developed. Because of the events of this previous week, and certainly a lot of the conversations that we have had, and a lot of the news reports that they have read in that area, both printed and media, there's a certain feeling over there that they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I went over to talk to them concerning that weight and explained to them that they are just one area of investigation and that there are many other branches and roots to the fault tree that we also need to examine. And I hope they felt better about that. They're not the only issue that we're exploring. They're one of many. And we appreciate their work, we appreciate their diligence and determination, and they are extremely motivated to try and find the root cause of this accident. Some information that I received from the mission or mishap investigation team just before I came over. This is the latest report from the field. We have recovered a partial wing leading edge RCC panel, that's reinforced carbon-carbon panel. It's 26 to 27 inches long with 18 inches of wing structure still attached. We are still trying to determine whether or not it is the left or the right wing. I think we should be able to determine that in the next day or so. To help you understand the magnitude of some of our problems, there have been over 350 reports of debris outside of Texas and Louisiana, 132 reports in California, of which 4 are closed, 130 reports in Arizona, of which 8 are closed, 9 reports in New Mexico, of which 4 are closed. Of all those reports, there has not been one confirmation of shuttle debris to this time. So we still have a lot of work to do, and we're following up on each and every one of those reports. Let me now walk you through some of these slides that I brought with me. I haven't practiced this, so I hope we can do this and make it sensible to you. Let's have the first slide. I'm going to walk through a series of cartoons that help you understand the relationship of these temperature sensors and skin sensors in the left wing. These are not engineering drawings by any stretch of the imagination. I also want to caution you that the times that are identified on these particular slides are very preliminary. In fact, I am not confident that these are the right times at all. One of the reasons why you're not seeing the timeline today is because we don't believe we have the right times established. This was our first burst of data. This was our first run through the information, and we anchored on some of these time frames. Now, as we are going through and poring over the data in more detail, we're finding that we made some mistakes in identifying where the right points should be. And I've asked the team to go back and review that again because I do not want to put out any misinformation on the timeline. So even though these times show up in these charts, I want you to understand they're going to change. So when I read the newspaper tomorrow, I hope you put some caveats to say these aren't the solid numbers, because they aren't. They are going to change. Let's go to the next chart. Okay, let me explain to you how to read the chart. And, you're looking at a top view of the wing. It's the left wing. We've tried to identify the sensors that we have talked about over the last week. You can see the wheel well. There are a number of sensors located in there. And at this point, at the beginning of the time frame that we have studied, which is about 7:52 a.m. Central Standard Time, GMT, it's 13:52 to get that correlation. Everything in green is a good sensor functioning nominally. An off-nominal sensor is going to show up as red, and then a sensor that just quits working, as we have talked about, it goes off-scale low or off-scale high, is going to show up as black as we step through this sequence. So here we are at 13:52 or 7:52 a.m. in the morning Central Standard Time, approximately 7 minutes prior to the loss of signal, where we lost communication and data from the vehicle and the crew. Let's go to the next slide. Here we are 20 seconds later, and again, caution you about the times and the delta time frames. These are all going to change. I want you to understand the relationship of these sensors, not necessarily the times, but it gives you a feel of what we're trying to review and what we're trying to investigate. The first indication, left main gear brake line temperature starts to rise. A 2 degree per minute rise is not significant. So we are not sure whether this is the real start of any significant event, but we're pointing that out today. First indication, as it shows red on the view graph. Next chart. Left main gear brake line temperature A starts to rise. I should point out also, as you look at the chart, I don't know if you can see that well, but there is kind of an orange or yellow cabling that connects several of the green sensors from the wheel well down into the back part of the wing or the trailing edge of the wing. The way to think about that is it's all in one common wire bundle or a set of bundles. There's a blue bundle or wire bundle at the trailing edge of the wing. That's a separate wire bundle. So that's going to become important to us as we think about common points of where there could be some heat source that could, at one location, disrupt several sensors. Let's go to the next chart. This is the third indication. The left main gear brake line temperature C starts to rise again in the wheel well. The next chart. First indication of a skin temperature going offline. You can see it's on the left inboard elevon. This is one that just quits working. Next chart. Hydraulic system 3, left outboard elevon actuator return line temperature goes offline, stops working, stops registering as functional. Next chart. Hydraulic system 1, left inboard elevon actuator return line temperature becomes non-functional. Next chart. Hydraulic system 1, left outboard elevon actuator return line temperature, again, non-functional. Hydraulic system 2, left inboard elevon actuator return line temp, again non-functional. So you can see we're trying to develop an understanding of a pattern and whether or not there is some common point that is preventing these sensors from functioning. And we're looking certainly at the wiring and the routing of the cables and the timeline. If you looked at the top of the chart, you can see that we're just running along the timeline in a sequence of events. Next chart's the left main gear brake line temperature B. We start to see it rise, so now we're back into the wheel well again. The next chart, mid-fuselage left body line temperature. Now this one's interesting because we don't believe it's connected in any of the wire bundles to what's in the elevon or what's in the wheel well. And so it's odd to us that this appears suddenly, but it begins to rise. And again, this is on the sidewall of the orbiter, back in this location. Not on the wing, on the sidewall. Whether that's important or not, we don't know. And so that's part of the investigation. Next chart, left main gear strut actuator temperature begins to rise. Next chart, left main gear uplock actuator, unlock line temperature begins to rise. Okay, here we are at approximately 7:54 a.m. Central Standard Time. No reports from the crew, no reports from our flight control teams. Everything is operating and functioning nominally in all of our systems. All we are seeing is some of these sensors dropping offline in a sequence of events over a period of time. Next chart, system 3, left hand, forward brake, switch valve, return line temperature starts to rise, back in the wheel well. Next, main landing gear, left outboard wheel temperature goes offline. Remember I explained to you previously that we had sensors on both of the tires in the wheel well. In a sequence of time, you'll see that they all didn't go offline or quit functioning at the same time, which leads us to believe that we didn't lose the tire. The tire didn't deflate. We didn't have some event happening, but what it means we don't know yet. Let's go to the next chart. Left upper wing skin temperature, left lower wing skin temperature goes offline. So you can see it's connected to the cabling that is common to many other sensors. Next chart, system 2, left hand. Aft brake switch valve return temperature starts at an off nominal temperature rise. And when I say start, again, I'll go back to what I mentioned previously in this briefing, and that is we're not sure where these start times really mean anything to us. This may be such a gradual change at the start times I'm talking about that it is not an off nominal event. As we go back and examine the data, we may find that it was relatively flat in this time frame, and then 2 or 3 minutes later it took a significant swing upward in temperature. And that's why I say I'm not sure we have the right starting point, but I hope you're getting the idea of what we're trying to look at. Next chart's the main landing gear left hand outboard tire pressure. Number 1 goes offline, non-functional. Next chart, main landing gear left hand inboard tire pressure goes offline. So you can see the sequence of how these things are starting to add up. Here we are at 7:58 approximately a.m. and so we're getting near to the time where we lost contact with the crew in the vehicle. Next chart's the main landing gear left hand inboard wheel temperature goes offline. Next chart, main landing gear left hand outboard tire pressure goes offline. Next chart, main landing gear left hand inboard tire pressure number 2 stops working. I believe that's the last chart. So that's the sequence of events as far as all the data that I've tried to explain to you over the last week. I hope that was informative to you. It certainly is helping us understand what's happening at what times. What it means yet, it's going to take us some time to figure that out. Be cautious about your own conclusions. We continue to look at photographic evidence. As I mentioned to you yesterday, it is challenging and difficult and proceeding slowly. We did receive a photo from the Air Force optical range at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. We can show that photo if we have it. I'm aware that there may be some of you that are saying this photo is revealing. We have looked at it. We had it during the week. And it's not tremendously revealing to us yet. I'm not an expert in looking at these types of photos, and so we are asking experts to do an evaluation of the photo to see if there's anything in this particular photo that would help us understand if there's anything wrong on the left wing. Here's the right wing, okay, and the left wing down at the bottom of the photograph. Now it looks a little more distorted on this large screen than it is in the actual photograph. But the nature of the photograph, because of the resolution, has a little choppiness to the wing leading edge. Some people are looking at this area on the bottom area of the photograph, and which would be the wing leading edge, and they're trying to draw some conclusions from that area. It's not clear to me that there's something there yet. If your eye is sharp, maybe you can draw a conclusion. I can't. And so we're asking the experts in the field to look at this particular photograph. We have been doing that over the last several days, and it's just part of our suite of information that we're going to continue to pore over. Again, I hope that is informative to you to help you understand that these things are not black and white. And you can get a particular photograph and someone might draw an immediate conclusion, and to us, we don't draw the same conclusions. I'm aware that there may be some reports and media reports that say this photograph is tremendously important. It's not clear to me that it reveals anything significantly at this point. Not anything significant at this point. So again, I'd be cautious about what all this information means to you. We've got a long way to go. And we have to add up all the different photographs and look at every piece of information and catalog it properly until we get the right data set. All by itself, I don't think it's very revealing. I'm hopeful that as the experts look at these photographs, maybe they can tell us something about the state of the vehicle. Now, as this week closes, we need to recognize that we have begun to open a new chapter in this investigation process. This week, the chapter of this week is closing, and it's been a frustrating week. The emotion has run high. The disappointment cannot be overstated. Gone through these memorials. It's been difficult for our team, but it's been beneficial because of the beginning of a healing process. But here we are today, a week later, almost a week later, and we are focused on solving the problem. An investigation board has arrived in Houston, and we've spent a lot of time with them transitioning our role, or understanding our roles and responsibilities, and transitioning the leadership and handing over the reins of this investigation to that board. Our support to this board is absolutely critical, and we have pledged our unwavering support to them. If there's anything they need, we will provide it. And we are working night and day to help them, on a very difficult task over the coming weeks and months. So again, let me say that we have a tremendous amount of work to do. The state of the team, if I were to report on their well-being, I'm extremely proud of them. They have risen to the occasion. They have overcome their own personal difficulties and are engaged in trying to find what went wrong across the country. East Coast, West Coast, everywhere we look, the professionalism is outstanding in the face of these trials and challenges that we have experienced. Also, as we close this week, I believe the chapter closes on the way we're handling these press conferences. We have been, in my opinion, as open as we can with you. We have expressed some of our feelings. We have revealed to you data that we don't even understand. We've shown you information that we know now may have been wrong, and we are going to have to adjust it. So you have been looking over our shoulder, so to speak, watching us go through this process. Typically, you never see this process. And whenever we have an investigation or any type of technical problem, this is pretty much typical. It is met with information that comes to your knowledge. Typically, the information is somewhat ragged and unreliable, and over time it gets better, and we find ourselves sometimes contradicting ourselves and moving in different directions because of what the data is trying to tell us. It changes day by day, sometimes hour by hour. And so, as you describe it, we may change our tune, we may change our direction, we may reverse our course. I think all those are acceptable descriptions of the process, as long as we are true to ourselves in trying to be rigorous about what the information means and what we need to do about solving the puzzle. As for me, I don't believe you'll need me up here anytime soon to talk to you about the information and the data. I think that chapter is closing. As we have turned over the reins of leadership on this investigation to the investigation board, this investigation board will now take over the handling of the briefings to the media and to the public. And we'll let you know the briefing schedule. One final comment before we open it up for questions. The purpose, one major purpose for us being so open and honest with you in this public setting, not only to let you follow along with us and to let the public follow along and try to understand what we're going through, but also to let the members of our team from across the country tune in and receive the latest information at our disposal. So whether they're on the East Coast or the West Coast, they have a feeling for what is going on in a very tragic situation. And the best thing for them is to try and understand what the events are from day to day and what information is being gathered, even if it's preliminary or premature to report, the best thing we can do for them is to report it. It's the healthiest thing for my team. And I hope you understand that also. I think it's been healthy for you to understand it. And as I've read some of your articles and reports, I think most of you have understood it and got the facts right. And I appreciate the way you have handled this part of the investigation so far. And so with that, I'll try to answer your questions to the best of my ability.
Okay, we're going to start in Houston. As you know, we're going to be running pretty short on time, so we'll try to get to as many as we can. Let's work across, starting right here, and try to keep it to one question, please.
Can you explain